Giridharadhari, Jaya Giridharadhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha, Jayo Giridharadhari, Jaya Giridharadhari. Jaya Yashodanandana, Jaya Vrajana Ranjana, Jaya Yashodanandana, Jaya Vrajana Ranjana. Jaya Yamuna Tiravanachari, Jaya Kunja Vihari. Jaya Yamuna Tiravanachari, Jaya Kunja Vihari. Jaya Radha Madhava, Jaya Kunja Vihari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha, Jaya Giridharadhari, Jaya Giridharadhari. Jaya Yashodanandana, Jaya Vrajana Ranjana. Jaya Yamuna Tiravanachari, Jaya Kunja Vihari. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jayo Radha Madhava, Radha Madhava Shri Radhe. Jayo Jagannatha Swami Jagannatha, Jayo Baladeva, Jaya Subhadrama. Jayo Gauranita, Jayo Gauranita, Jayo Gauranita, Jayo Gauranita. Jayo Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, Jayo Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jayo Gurudeva, Jayo Gurudeva, Jayo Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva. जय श्री श्री राधा माधव की जय, श्री श्री जगन्नाथ बलदेव सुभद्रमाय की जय, श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय, श्री गुरुदेव की जय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the Personality of Godhead, Narayana, unto Naranarayana Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotees, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed. And loving service unto the Personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. So we're looking at verse 24 from chapter 28 in Canto 3. So if the text is being displayed there, please repeat after me. Uru Suparna Bhujayor Adhishobhamana. You can repeat after me. Oh, it's not there. Okay, I'll just read it then. Uru Suparna Bhujayor Adhishobhamana ओजो निधि अथ सिका कुसुमावभासौ व्यालं विपीत वरवाससि वर्तमाना काञ्ची कलाप परिरम्भिनितम्बबिम्बम् ऊरु सुपर्णभुजयोरधिशोभमाना ऊजो निधि अथ सिका कुसुमावभासौ व्यालं विपीत वरवाससि वर्तमाना काञ्ची कलाप परिरम्भिनितम्बबिम्बम् ऊरु सुपर्णभुजयोरधिशोभमाना ओजो निधि अथ सिका कुसुमावभासौ व्यालं विपीत वरवाससि वर्तमाना काञ्ची कलाप परिरम्भिनितम्बबिम्बम्. You can repeat the translations with me. Uru, the two thighs. Suparna, of Garuda. Bhujayohu, the two shoulders. Adhi, on. Shobhamanau, beautiful. Ojahanidhi, the storehouse of all energy. Atasika kusuma, of the linseed flower. Avabhasau, like the luster. Vyalambi, extending down. Pita, yellow. 3:28:24. 3:28:24. Vara, exquisite. Vasasi, on the cloth. Vartamana, being. Kanchi kalapa, by a girdle. Parirambhi, encircled. Nitamba bimbam, his rounded hips. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Please repeat the translation after me. Next, the yogi should fix his mind in meditation on the personality of Godhead's thighs, the storehouse of all energy. The Lord's thighs are whitish blue, like the luster of the linseed flower, and appear most graceful when the Lord is carried on the shoulders of Garuda. Also, the yogi should contemplate his rounded hips, which are encircled by a girdle that rests on the exquisite yellow silk cloth that extends down to his ankles. Please hear the purport. The personality of Godhead is a reservoir of all strength, and his strength rests on the thighs of his transcendental body. His whole body is full of opulences, all riches, all strength, all fame, all beauty, all knowledge, and all renunciation. The yogi is advised to meditate upon the transcendental form of the Lord, beginning from the soles of the feet and then gradually rising to the knees, to the thighs, and finally arriving at the face. The system of meditating on the Supreme Personality of Godhead begins from his feet. The description of the transcendental form of the Lord is exactly represented in the Archa Vigraha, the statue in the temples. Generally, the lower part of the body of the statue of the Lord is covered with yellow silk. That is the Vaikunta dress, or the dress the Lord wears in the spiritual sky. This cloth extends down to the Lord's ankles. Thus, since the yogi has so many transcendental objectives on which to meditate, there is no reason for his meditating on something imaginary, as is the practice of the so-called yogis whose objective is impersonal. Jai Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitanscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Shri Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hare Priye Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauretvishe Namaha Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Once again, a warm welcome to all the devotees for this morning's discussion on Srimad Bhagavatam. So we're looking at 3:28-24. In this chapter, Kapila Dev is instructing his mother on the execution of devotional service in terms of meditating on the different limbs of the Lord, of the Lord, basically. And in today's verse specifically, Kapila Dev is instructing that we should meditate on the thighs of the Lord. And thighs and hips of the Lord. And the verse describes the beauty of these two limbs of the Lord. The thighs are supposed to be whitish blue in color. I don't know if you've seen the, what do you call that? The linseed flower. I actually taken a picture of it. Just give me a second. I'll show it to you. So I don't know if you can see it properly, but this is how it looks like. If you can see, it's somewhat more whitish in color than what's shown here, but it's somewhat like this. So the Lord's thighs are supposed to be in that color. And Prabhupada also says, the verse also says that the thighs are the storehouse of all the strength, right? And they appear very beautiful when the Lord sits on the shoulders of Garuda. So that's his thighs. Coming to the hips, it is said that they are adorned by a girdle or a waist belt, and it is resting on the silk yellow garment, Pitambara Vastra as we call it, which is flowing down to the ankles of the Lord. Right. So the subject about meditating on the different the ornaments of the Lord is very interesting. A god brother of mine has actually has written two different articles. One he wrote on the types of ornaments that the Lord wears, and he also wrote another article on the effects of meditating on the ornaments of the Lord. It's a very interesting study. He actually collected references from various scriptures actually, and he presented it very nicely. If some of you are subscribed to the Grantra Gmail, this thing, you can have those. You can read them there. They're very beautiful. It's an interesting study actually. And from these descriptions also we can understand, we can actually visualize how the Lord actually looks like. That's the beauty of these verses. Just by reading them we can understand that. And that's why Srimad Bhagavatam is very important for us, because it gives us an insight into the different aspects of the Lord actually. Starting from his physical form itself, how he looks like, how the different parts, different limbs of his body look like, what he wears, how he walks, how he sits, and who are his devotees, what are his dealings with his devotees. And all these different aspects are actually mentioned in Bhagavatam. So this text is very important for us. And thanks to Srila Prabhupada, we can actually also understand these things because he translated it into English, into a language that we all can understand. Right? And moving on, the Lord is absolute in every respect. Right? He represents the best and the highest and the best in anything and everything. Right? And we also saw in the purport today that the Lord is full in all the six opulences, the name, wealth, knowledge, fame, strength, beauty, and renunciation. And today's verse is specifically talking about one of those opulences, which is strength. So let us try and understand certain aspects of this opulence called strength. To begin with, Krishna himself is actually very, very strong, right? And he displayed it in the number of pastimes that he performed while he was present here, right? Uh, right from day one, he started killing so many demons, starting with Putana. He killed Putana, then Shakatasura, then Bakasura, Aghasura, and so many demons like that. And later on, he also proved his strength by lifting the Govardhan hill just with his left hand pinky finger. Just like how a child can pick up a flower from the ground, he picked up the Govardhan hill, which is so huge actually, right? He proved his strength there. Then again, later on, it is said that in the pastime of Kaliya, chastisement of Kaliya, it is mentioned that when he jumped into the Kaliya river, the river overflowed in all directions actually. That's how much impact it had when he jumped into the river to chastise Kaliya. And later on, he killed the wrestlers in Kamsa's wrestling arena, and he killed the Kuvalayapida elephant, and like this. And we all know there are so many pastimes till the end where the Lord killed so many different people actually without much effort, really. And not only in that incarnation, but in any other incarnation that he comes in, he displays this opulence of strength. When he came as Narasimhadev, for example, he killed this powerful, very, very strong personality called Hiranyakashipu. Hiranyakashipu's chest is supposed to be stone-like, and that's why we sing Shilatanka Nakale. Just with his fingernails, he pierced the stone-like hard chest of Hiranyakashipu. Later on, when he came as Parashurama, he killed all the Kshatriyas of the world 21 times. Just single-handedly, imagine killing all Kshatriyas 21 times all over the world. And when he came as Lord Ram, again he displayed his strength. For example, he lifted the bow, Lord Shiva's bow, which is impossible to be carried at all by human beings. That it was said that something like 500 people, 500 able-bodied soldiers carried that bow. But Lord Ram lifted it with his one single hand, with his left hand actually, and he broke it into half. And later on, when in Kishkinda, when Sugriva asked him to prove his strength, because Sugriva didn't know who is Lord Ram, obviously. So, and Lord Ram said that I will help you by killing your brother Vali, and you help me find my beloved Sita. And Sugriva was not sure if Lord Ram is actually powerful, because Vali is so powerful. He is so powerful that even Ravana could not do anything to Vali. He was so powerful that every Sandhya Vandana, he used to jump to the ocean in the different directions across the world actually. Every day. That's how powerful he was. So Sugriva was not sure if Lord Ram can actually fight with Vali. So he asked him to prove his strength. And he gave him two tests. One is to lift the body of a demon called Tundubi, which is supposed to be very, very heavy. I can't remember the exact weight, but it's supposed to be very, very heavy. And asked him to throw it to a distance of 1 yojana. A yojana is about 12 to 15 kilometers, and around that. And Lord Ram, he effortlessly kicked the dead body of Dundubi, and it went 10 yojanas away. You can imagine. And the next test he gave him was to shoot an arrow through there were 7 tala vrukshas, tala trees, which are supposed to be again very, very powerful, very, very strong. And so he asked Lord Ram to pierce one arrow through one of those trees. And what Lord Ram did was, he shot his arrow in such a way that it pierced all the 7 trees, it pierced a mountain, it pierced the earth, came back from the other side and went into the quiver of Lord Ram. That was how much powerful Lord Ram was. So this is the strength of Krishna. What to talk of this gross strength? We all know that it is because of his strength, it is because of his power that all the planets in the world, in the universe, are floating. Just like that. But without Krishna's energy, it is impossible for them to stay afloat in the sky like that. So from all these pastimes, we understand the unlimited strength of Krishna. And that's why Arjuna addresses him in the 11th chapter of Bhagavad Gita as Apramita Prabhava, O one with immeasurable power. And we cannot possibly measure the strength of Krishna. And so we shall try and understand some other aspects of this strength, right? Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport to 9, 10, 20 that there are two different types of strength. One is called Daiva and the second is called Purushakara. This Daiva refers to the strength received from transcendence, from the Lord basically. And the second strength is Purushakara. It refers to the strength that is organized by one's own intelligence and power. You know, let's first look at this second one, this Purushakara Shakti. So this Shakti refers to the gross physical strength that is present in every one of us. It may be present in different degrees. For example, the elephant may have much more strength than us. A bodybuilder can have much more strength than what we have, normal beings have. So this is a strength. This is a gross physical strength. And Krishna says that he is the source of this strength also. In Bhagavad Gita, he says this in two different places. In 7:11, he says, Balam Balavatam Chaham. I'm the strength of the strong. And he repeats the same thing again in 10:36, where he says, Sattvam Sattvatamaham. Again, the meaning is exactly the same. I'm the strength of the strong. Right? And if we know that if something is being repeated, it is very important. Like how in our childhood, when we were studying during exam time, we always used to concentrate on important questions, isn't it? If looking at past historical question papers, if we saw that some question is being repeatedly tested, we know that it is important. So we used to study. If you're lucky, if the same question came, we were lucky and we did well. If not, maybe not so well also. Right? So if Krishna is repeating this particular thing twice, and there are very few things that are repeated in Bhagavad Gita. I can think of only 3 of them. There could be others I can't remember now, but at least 3 I can remember that are repeated in Bhagavad Gita. And this is one of them. So we know that this is very important, that Krishna is actually the source of all strength. Right? And knowing that we must use our strength in serving and protecting the Lord, protecting the devotees of the Lord actually. That is the proper use of physical strength. If we are very strongly built, but if we are not using that bodily strength in the service of the Lord and His devotees, then that physical strength has no value at all actually. Right? So all the bodybuilders, we know they go to the gym and build so many muscles. But if you think about it, what is the practical value of having such muscles? Can you think of anything? I can't think of anything really. Other than to show off or participate in some competitions, I can't really think of any practical use of having those kind of muscles actually. Right? So we should not really spend too much time in the gym and all that. We can do the minimum required to keep ourselves fit. But even there, Guru Maharaj said that we can actually channel that energy by engaging in some useful activities. For example, he said that instead of going to the gym, why don't you just take a broom and clean your house? Take a cloth and clean your house or the temple. That way you would get enough exercise and you would also clean the place. 2 things are achieved in one shot. Right? So that's the physical strength that we're talking about. The next type of strength is what we said is Daiva Shakti, or the spiritual energy, spiritual strength. This spiritual strength also comes from Krishna, and it refers to the spiritual power that a person acquires by virtue of his penances and austerities, right? And while physical strength is gross in nature, the spiritual strength is subtle in nature, just like our modern day weaponry. In today's weapons, you have to, if you want to use them, you have to design them first. We have to manufacture them. We have to assemble them. We have to carry them to the place where we want to wage a war, and we have to shoot them. And we don't know whether we can hit the target or not properly. But the weapons in the Vedic age, they were used using mantras. The archers, they could assemble the personality behind the weapons through the mantra, and that personality would actually go and hit the target, the exact specific target that the person throwing that arrow intended, right? So there was no mass destruction. So there was, it was a very efficient use of weapons also. So, so that's the difference. And even if a person with spiritual strength, even if he's thin, physically speaking, that does not mean that he's not strong, right? For example, like Prabhupada himself, if you look at him physically speaking, by physical standards, he was very thin and not so very strong also, isn't it? But just see what he achieved, with the stock of spiritual power that he had, he was able to set up a society like a large organization like ISKCON and transform the lives of millions of people. Do you think this was possible if he had a lot of physical strength? No, it is not possible, isn't it? But because he had this stock of spiritual power that he acquired through his austerities, that Prabhupada was able to accomplish what he did, right? And nobody can achieve this feat even if he had all the strength to beat up everyone. Prabhupada turned all those hippies into happy devotees, and he made them to stop so many abominable activities like meat eating, illicit sex, and things like that. And to do this in the Western society with the hippies, it's an unimaginable task actually, right? But he was able to do that. So that's the power of spiritual strength. And this spiritual strength, this particular aspect about spiritual strength being greater than physical strength was also nicely brought out in Ramayana, where Shatananda, who is the son of Gautama Muni and Ahalya, when he explained the glories of Vishwamitra to Lord Ram, right? And during that episode, while he was explaining, he explains the history of Vishwamitra to Lord Ram. And he tells him that, and he says that, so this Vishwamitra, before he became Vishwamitra, he was actually a king called Kaushika. And he was the son of another great king called Gadi. This name comes up in Bhagavatam also, if you see. Gadi was also very, very powerful and very prominent king in the history. So he's the son of Gadi, and so that's why he was also called Gadi Sutta, if I'm not mistaken. So this king Kaushika, after Gadi retired, this king Kaushika inherited the kingdom, and he ruled his subjects very nicely for hundreds and thousands of years actually. And it so happened that once upon a time, he went on a tour of his kingdom basically. And he went through many forests, many towns, cities, hills, whatnot. Basically went through so many different parts of his kingdom. And finally, he arrived at the hermitage of Vasishtha, right? And Vasishtha welcomed the king and his entourage, and they exchanged pleasantries. And after speaking like that for some time, cordially, very nicely, then Vasishtha offered to take care of the entire entourage of Kaushika. He said that you have come to my ashram, so please allow me to feed all your army, But Kaushika said that you're a sage, you may not be able to feed everyone. It's okay, we are okay, But Vasishtha insists that no, I want to serve you all. And Kaushika thought that Vasishtha, being a sage living in an ashram, probably he's going to give me some fruits and roots and whatnot. But that's still okay, It's okay. He said, okay, yes, go ahead. And then Vasishtha, what he did was he called for Shabala, who is the daughter of Kamadhenu, and asked her to prepare all kinds of foodstuffs, all the different types of foodstuff, meeting the requirements, the taste requirements of everybody in the army of Kaushika. Right? Shabala was powerful, just like Kamadhenu. It can fulfill the desires of everyone, basically. So the Shabala, it actually prepared all these different mountains of rice and different varieties of foodstuffs. And everyone was fed very sumptuously, and everyone was very happy. And after everything was over, Kaushika asked Vasishtha, this Shabala is very nice, and that in a kingdom, the king should actually possess everything that's great. So I want this Shabala, please give it to me. And Vasishtha said that, O king, I cannot part with Shabala because she is the source of all my spiritual strength. I'm able to perform my Agnihotra sacrifice, all the other sacrifices and everything from the ingredients that Shabala gives me. So I cannot really give her to you. And Kaushika then offers a lot of things to Vasishtha. He says that I'll give you so many thousands of horses, so many thousands of elephants with golden tusks, and many things like that actually. But Vasishtha does not agree to part with Shabala. And then Kaushika said that no, there's no way going back. I'm going to take Shabala by force. So he starts taking Shabala by force, though Vasishtha does not agree to it. And so while he was taking, when the army started taking Shabala, Shabala somehow escaped from the army and came back to Vasishtha and fell down at his feet, lotus feet, and asked him, "Oh Vasishtha, why are you abandoning me like this? Am I not fulfilling your needs, your requirements? Or have I offended you in any way?" So she asked him like that. And then Vasishtha says that, no, O Shabala, nothing like that. You are fulfilling all my desires and every need of mine. And you never offended me in any way. But the king wants to take you by force, and I cannot do anything really. And then Shabala, who knows Shastra, she says that, she says exactly the same words actually. She says, "O holy sage, the power of a warrior is as great compared to that of is not as great compared to that of a holy sage. The strength of a sage is divine and based on the exercise of spiritual practices and discipline. It is therefore limitless. So you are immeasurably stronger than a Kshatriya. And the power of that mighty king Vishwamitra is great, but he cannot equal your strength and splendor. And, O Lord, through your strength and energy, allow me to destroy the power and pride of this wicked wretch." So she says these words. And Vasishtha agrees to the proposal of Shabala. And then Shabala starts creating a number of different types of armies from her own body, actually. The Ramayana gives us a description of the kind of personalities that come out of the body of Shabala. So after ultimately the army of Shabala decimates literally the entire army of Kaushika, of Vishwamitra. And then the 100 sons of Vishwamitra start charging at Vasishtha, thinking that he is the reason for this. And Vasishtha, just by saying, like this, he killed all the sons of Vishwamitra. So, and after that, all the sons are destroyed except one son remains. Then Vishwamitra realizes that his physical army will not really help in any way. So he handed over the kingdom to his remaining son, the last remaining son, and he goes to perform austerities and to please Lord Shiva. And Lord Shiva is pleased with him. And when he is pleased, Vishwamitra asks him to give him all the different kinds of weapons that are all there in the entire Vedic history. So Lord Shiva agrees and bestows him that benediction to have the knowledge of all the weapons in the world. And using that, taking them, Vishwamitra comes back to the ashram of Vasishtha and starts creating havoc actually. He starts troubling all the inhabitants, he starts destroying the ashram using all the weapons that he acquired. And Vasishtha, he assured everyone, and what he did was wonderful actually. He, just using the Brahmadanda, the staff that he had, he subdued all the weapons that were thrown by Kaushika or Vishwamitra. He throws so many weapons actually. In fact, Ramayana counted and Ramayana listed like some 38 different powerful weapons that Vishwamitra threw at Vasishtha. But Vasishtha, just by the danda that he was carrying, he was able to subdue all those weapons. And finally, Vishwamitra threw the Brahmastra also. But Vasishtha, he subdued that Brahmastra also. And then Kaushika realized that his physical, the strength of weapons is nothing in front of spiritual power actually. He says that the real power is the spiritual power. Sri Vasishtha, by his spiritual strength, has fully conquered mine. I will therefore abandon my warlike nature and seek to obtain Brahminhood. So saying like this, he went back to do tapasya, and it is a long journey before he achieved what he wanted, which is a position of Brahmarshi actually, which is equal to the position of Vasistha. It's a very interesting, beautiful story actually, right? It's a long journey. So, so that's the power of spiritual strength, right? So we looked at the strength of the Lord. Now, next we look at the different energies of the Lord. And while strength, the English definition, the difference between strength and energy is that while strength is the quality or degree of being strong, energy is the impetus behind all motion and all activity, right? And we know that Krishna is the remote and original cause of everything, basically. Sarva Karana Karanam, right? He causes everything to happen through the agency of his energies. And we all know that his energies are primarily three, right? One is Bahiranga Shakti, or the external energy of the Lord. The second one is Antaranga Shakti, or the internal energy. And the third one is Tatastha Shakti, or marginal energy of the Lord. This marginal energy of the Lord is represented by us, the jivas, right? So they are tatastha in nature. You know, they have a tendency to either go towards the spiritual side or to the material side. If the constitutional position of the living entity if the living entity realizes his constitutional position, then he tends to go towards the spiritual side. But if his constitutional position is covered by the illusory energy of the Lord, then he tends to gravitate towards the material side of the existence, right? So that's the material energy, marginal energy of the Lord. Next one is the external energy, and this energy is represented by the phenomenal manifestation that we see all around us, right? The different universes, the different planets, the different planets, and everything that is there within the planets. All these are a representation of the external energy of the Lord. And again, as I said before, all these planets are staying afloat because of the energy of the Lord. And not only that, all the living entities within those planets are also being sustained through the different energies of the Lord, right? And the other aspect of this external energy is that it puts the living entities into illusion. That's the secondary aspect of. That's the other aspect of the external energy. While one is about the aspect about maintaining all the planets and things like that, the other is about putting the living entities into illusion, right? So, because of this illusion, the living entities, they forget their constitutional position and starts identifying themselves with the body and its relations, basically. And it is very powerful and almost impossible to overcome. Krishna himself says is that Daivi Hesha Gunamayi Mamamaya Duratya. It is impossible to overcome the influence of my energy, Arjuna, he says. Right? And the three modes of the material nature are its primary agents. So it's very, very powerful. So that's the external energy of the Lord. And the final one is the internal energy of the Lord. And this internal energy is further divided into three, which is Sandhini, Samvit, and Hladini, or Satchit and Ananda, representing eternity, full knowledge, and complete bliss. Right? So all the activities of the Lord are conducted through the agency of this internal energy. And it is also said that the activities of the devotees of the Lord, pure devotees of the Lord, are also conducted through the agency of his internal energy. And this internal energy of the Lord arranges all the pastimes of the Lord, just like how a secretary plans the day of her boss, for example. Like that, this internal energy also plans all the activities of the Lord. And the beauty of this internal energy of the Lord is slightly hinted at in a particular verse in Bhagavatam. In the 12th chapter of 10th canto, 27th verse, this comes out. And this chapter is about killing Aghasura. So one day Krishna, he wanted to enjoy a picnic with his friends. So he goes to the forest early with all his friends and their respective cows and all that. So they start playing, and after a while, this demon called Aghasura, he comes there. He's the younger brother of Putana and Bakasura. So because Krishna killed those two demons, he wanted to avenge their death. and he wanted to kill Krishna. So he comes there, and he assumes the form of a big python. He expands himself to something like 8 miles or something like that. And he opens his mouth, and it was so big that the mouth was touching from the floor, it was touching the skies up to the heavenly planets, it seems. That's how huge the mouth was. And these cowhead boys, they saw this beautiful thing, and they thought that, this looks wonderful, we never saw this before. Let's go inside. And then they specifically also said that, it's okay if it is dangerous. Krishna will come and rescue us. And that's the kind of faith that these friends of Raja have on Krishna. So they go into this mouth of Aghasura. And Krishna, meanwhile, he obviously knew who Aghasura was, and he wanted to warn his friends. But even before he could do that, the friends already went inside, right? So that's where this particular verse comes actually. This verse says, "Tan veksha Krishna sakala abhaya prado hyananyanathan swakarada denam shamrutyor jetharagni ghasan grunardito tishta krutena vismitaha." It says, Krishna saw that all the cowhead boys who did not know anyone but him as their Lord had now gone out of his hands and were helpless, having entered like straws into the fire of the abdomen of Aghasura, who was death personified. It was intolerable for Krishna to be separated from his friends and cowhead boys. Therefore, as this is the part that is relevant for us. Therefore, as if seeing that this had been arranged by his internal potency, Krishna was momentarily struck with wonder and unsure of what to do. The last two words of this verse, Dishta Krutena and Vismitaha. Dishta Krutena means that things that are arranged by his internal potency. And Vismitaha means astonished. So Krishna was momentarily astonished. Why? Astonished at what? Astonished by the situation that his internal energy created for him to take part in, right? So, the word momentarily is also significant. Why? Because we know from 6:9:22 of Bhagavatam that Krishna is avismitam. He is described as avismitam tam paripurna kamam. He is never bewildered or never struck with wonder by anything in the world. Actually, that's the reason why Prabhupada specifically says momentarily struck with wonder and unsure what to do, right? So that's what it specifically said that. And Srila Prabhupada also writes the same episode in Krishna book, right? I'll just read out what he says in Krishna book. He says, Krishna is the assurance of safety to everyone. If you remember the word that is in the first line, Sakala Abhaya Prada. So Prabhupada translates that in the Krishna book as, Krishna is the assurance of safety to everyone. But when he saw that his friends were already out of his hands and were lying within the belly of a great serpent, he became momentarily aggrieved, again momentarily. And he was also struck with wonder at how the external energy works so wonderfully. He then began to consider how to kill the demon and at the same time save the boys and cows. Although there was no factual concern on Krishna's part, he was thinking like that. So it's interesting to note that Prabhupada translated this Dishta Krutena as internal energy in the verse, but in Krishna book he translated it as external energy. There's a slight difference there. And factually speaking, ultimately there is actually no difference between internal energy or external energy. And Prabhupada himself confirms this in the purport to 1.334. He says these things, Krishna's energy, transcendental energy, acts according to his omnipotency. Omnipotency refers to the potency of the Lord, by which he is present everywhere, every nook and corner of his creation, right? So it continues. The same energy, this is the key part. Prabhupada says the same energy acts as his external, internal, and marginal energies, and by his omnipotency, he can perform anything and everything through the agency of any of these energies. So we see how Prabhupada is saying that ultimately the energy is the same actually, right? And he gives a very beautiful example also. The example of electrical energy is very appropriate in this connection. The expert electrician can utilize the electrical energy for both heating and cooling just by adjustment only. Similarly, the external energy, which now bewilders the living being into continuation of birth and death, is turned into internal potency by the will of the Lord to lead the living being to eternal life. So, how beautifully Prabhupada brings out through the example of electrical energy, that we use the same electricity to both heat our houses and also to keep it cool also. The same electric energy is the same, isn't it? So in the same way, the energy, we may call it by different names as external or internal or marginal energies, but ultimately they're all one and the same. And Krishna can use anything in any way he wants to accomplish what he wants, basically, right? So there is no distinction in the ultimate issue. So having understood the different aspects of the Lord's strength and the Lord's energies, what is our duty actually, right? So irrespective of what energy is at play, because Krishna is absolute, his pastimes are also absolute. So the acharyas have advised us to actually meditate on the pastimes of the Lord, right? And Srila Prabhupada writes again in the same purport, I think, he says, the appearance and disappearance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his different activities are all confidential, even to the Vedic literatures. Yet, they are displayed by the Lord to bestow mercy upon the conditioned souls. We should take advantage of the narrations of the activities of the Lord, which are meditations on Brahman in the most convenient and palatable forms. This is a beautiful line that Prabhupada wrote, actually. Very, very beautiful line. These narrations of the activities of the Lord are what? They are meditations on Brahman in the most convenient and palatable form. On one hand, Prabhupada is saying that one should meditate on Brahman. And that's what all transcendentalists are expected to do, isn't it? And on the other hand, he's suggesting that the best method to meditate on Brahman is to actually meditate on the pastimes of the Lord, right? And it is because when we are embodied, we tend to identify ourselves with the sphere that we are present in, with the circumstances that we are present in. And not only that, I noticed that in today's trend that in the movies, you take these Marvel superheroes movies or any of the Indian vernacular movies, especially in the South, they elevate the hero to such a larger than life status, that, and everyone, the masses, everyone likes that actually. It seems as if humans have this innate tendency to identify themselves with someone who is greater than them and who can achieve things which they can never dream of achieving, right? So that is why Krishna assumes different forms in his different incarnations and performs wondrous acts by which we can also get attracted to him, right? Like for example, what we said before, like he's picking up Govardhan Hill, such a wondrous act just on his left hand pinky finger. You can't even imagine doing it, and he does that and he stands like that for 7 days. A wonderful act actually, right? And devotees are also equally awed by his other sweet pastimes also. For example, the pastime of Damodar, where the Lord submitted himself to the will of his devotee. So ultimately, when we meditate on these activities of the Lord, it becomes easy for us to meditate on Brahman, right? And it's also easy to identify because Krishna comes in the form of a human being that we can also identify with, because we are in the same form. And when Krishna comes in that form, it's very easy for us to identify with the Lord. It becomes easy for us to remember those pastimes actually. On the other hand, if someone were to ask me to meditate on Brahman, how many of us can actually sit tight for half an hour at least? Forget half an hour. I can't sit like this for 10 minutes. My knees will be paining and I have to move here, move there. Can't sit for 10 minutes also properly. But I can certainly remember the various pastimes of the Lord, wherever I am, and I can easily remember the transcendental form of the Lord from the descriptions of the Lord in Bhagavatam and other scriptures like that. And not only that, because he's present in front of me in his deity form, I can actually serve him in many different ways. He's present in my house as a deity and in the temple also. I wake him up every day. We do aarti for him. and we feed him, we bathe him, we buy clothes and jewelry for him. We put him to sleep. We chant his names. We do kirtan. We observe his festivals, his appearances, and different other pastimes. Like this, all these activities become our meditations on Brahman. And see the genius of Prabhupada, how he arranged the activities of devotees, how he planned the activities of devotees in their daily routine, right? We are really indebted to Prabhupada that he's engaging us in meditation on Brahman, even without us realizing it actually, most of the time, right? So, and that's what in today's purport, if we see in the second paragraph, he says, Prabhupada says that the description of the transcendental form of the Lord is exactly represented in the Archa Vigraha. So whatever meditation we are being asked to do by Kapila Dev in this particular chapter, it can be achieved by worshipping the deities, right? And frankly speaking, deity worship is not necessary for liberation as such, right? Chanting of the holy names of the Lord in itself is actually sufficient to help us come out of this cycle of birth and death. But because we don't have enough taste for it, acharyas at different times have actually advised us to engage in deity worship. I'll quote what Srila Jiva Goswami said. He said, although deity worship is not essential, the material conditioning of most candidates for devotional service requires that they engage in this activity, that is deity worship. And when we consider that bodily and mental conditions, we find that the character of such candidates is impure and their minds are agitated. Therefore, to rectify this material conditioning, the great sage Narada and others have at different times recommended various kinds of regulations for deity worship. So that's our situation, isn't it? We have impure minds and we're always agitated and all that. So knowing our condition very well, the different acharyas at different times have actually advised us to engage in deity worship, though it is not essential as such to perform, for various reasons actually, right? And it is important to engage in this deity worship through the instructions of his bona fide spiritual master. It's very important actually. And for us, our standards of deity worship have been set by Prabhupada. So all his instructions become the guiding principles in executing deity worship, right? So we should not subtract or add anything to the process of deity worship. In order to maintain the purity, we should do it in the same way that we learn from our authorities, basically, right? So, and there is one particular purport in Chaitanya Charitamrita which very beautifully summarizes what Prabhupada says in the first line and the last line of today's purport in the second paragraph, right? So, in the second paragraph, the first line says, the description of the transcendental form of the Lord is exactly represented in the Archa Vigraha, the statue of the temples. That's the first sentence. The last sentence says, since the yogi has so many transcendental objectives on which to meditate, there is no reason for his meditating on something imaginary, as the practice of the so-called yogis, whose objective is impersonal. And there's one particular purport that summarizes both these points very nicely. I'll just read that purport. Oh, sorry, it's already 8:30. We are almost towards the end, actually. So, Prabhupada says in Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhyalila 13:139, he says, the process of mystic yoga, the speculative method for searching out the absolute truth, does not appeal to one who is always absorbed in the thoughts of Krishna. A devotee is not at all interested in speculative activities. Instead of cultivating speculative knowledge or practicing mystic yoga, a devotee should worship the deity in the temple and continuously engage in the Lord's service. Temple deity worship is realized by the devotees to be the same as direct service to the Lord. See how nicely Prabhupada is tying up these 2 points. And he continues, the deity is known as the Archa Vigraha or Archa Avatara, an incarnation of the Supreme Lord in the form of a material manifestation, brass, stone or wood. And these are all the different materials using which the deities can be made. And he continues, ultimately there is no difference between Krishna manifest in matter or Krishna manifest in spirit, because both are his energies, again energies. For Krishna, there is no distinction between matter and spirit. His manifestation in material form, therefore, is as good as his original form, Satchidananda Vigraha. A devotee constantly engaged in deity worship according to the rules and regulations laid down in the Shastras and given by the spiritual master realizes gradually that he is in direct contact with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus, he loses all interest in so called meditation, yoga practice, and mental speculation. See how beautifully these 2 points are tied up in one purport, actually, where Prabhupada is advising us to engage in deity worship instead of meditating on the impersonal void, right? So, but what if we can't worship a deity? What if, whatever reasons, what if we can't worship a deity at home? What if we can't visit the temple on a regular basis and serve the deities at the temple? How can we then meditate on the Lord? And that's where 1625 comes to our rescue. Narada Muni says this, Etavadukto upararama tanmahat bhutam nabho lingamalingam aham cha tasmai mahatam mahiyase sirshnavanamam vidadhe anukampitaha. He says, then that supreme authority personified by sound and unseen by eyes, but most wonderful, stopped speaking. Feeling a sense of gratitude, I offered my obeisances unto him, bowing my head. This is the episode where Narada Muni, after the Bhaktivedantas leave and after his mother passes away, he starts roaming around the world, singing the glories of the Lord. And once he starts meditating on the Lord in a forest, and the Lord, pleased by his meditation, appears before him, and he speaks certain things, and he disappears after that immediately. No, he doesn't appear physically, but in his mind when Narada Muni was meditating on the Lord. And then Narada Muni loses that vision suddenly, and he speaks. The Krishna speaks certain verses. There are beautiful verses that Krishna also speaks. And when the Lord disappears, that's when Narada Muni speaks this particular verse. And the purport is very small and very beautiful, actually. That the personality of Godhead was not seen, but only heard, does not make any difference, right? The personality of Godhead produces the four Vedas by his breathing, and he is seen and realized through the transcendental sound of the Vedas. Similarly, the Bhagavad Gita is a sound representation of the Lord, and there is no difference in identity. And the conclusion is that the Lord can be seen and realized by persistent chanting of the transcendental sound. So, if we are not able to worship the deity in the temple or at home, we don't have to lose heart. We can still take darshan of the Lord through the verses of Bhagavatam. We can still meditate on him through the different purports of Srila Prabhupada. We may not be able to visit the temple and all that, but we can certainly purchase a set of Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita from Bal Prabhu or Sridhar Prabhu, and we can certainly read those books and meditate on Krishna, right? Whether you are in a dormitory, or whether you're in a condo or in HDB, whether you're in a ship or a plane, wherever you are, you can take up a small book of Prabhupada and read and know about Krishna, and in that way, that becomes your meditation on Brahman. So I'll just end by quoting a small beautiful verse that describes the physical beauty of the Lord. The class has ended, but I'll just end this with this verse. Kasturi tilakam lalata patale Vakshastale kaustubham Nasagre navamauktikam karatale Venum kare kankanam Sarvangair harichandanam sulalitam Kanthe chamuktavali Gopastri pariveshtito vijayate Gopala Chudamani. This verse is from Krishna Karnamrita that beautifully describes the physical form of the Lord, how he was. And he always wears a Kasturi Tilaka on his forehead. On his chest is hanging the Kaustuba jewel. And on his tip of the nose is Navamuktikam, a small pearl is hanging from his nose. And Karatale Venum is carrying a flute in his hand, and Kare Kankanam, his hands are adorned by nice bangles. And Sarvanga Harichandanam, all his body is smeared with chandan. And Kantecha Muktavali, again there's a necklace of pearls strung around his neck. and he's surrounded by the gopis, and he's glowing like that. And that's verse Bilavangal Thakur says in Krishna Karnamrita. So, and like this, there are so many other verses in Bhagavatam also that describe the transcendental beauty of the Lord. So we can achieve the meditation that Kapil Dev is asking us in this particular chapter by reading Srimad Bhagavatam and meditating on these beautiful verses that are there. Hare Krishna. Any questions, concerns, or realizations, Prabhu? Yes, Prabhu.
You mentioned that for Krishna there is no internal, no external energy. I was just wondering that for Krishna, even the material energy can be converted to
Vice versa. Yes, that's true. That's what Prabhupada says. That for him, the internal energy can be he can convert internal energy into external energy or external energy into internal energy. He can do that. Krishna can do that. Yeah.
So the jivas can also become
His internal energy. So when we go back to Krishna, we become part of his internal energy.
pure devotees.
Yes.
Internal energy.
Yes, correct.
One becomes bahir mukti there.
Yes, that is the marginal energy. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. If there's nothing else, we can end here. Granthra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki jai.